Hi everyone, my name is Devin Evans and I work at the Worcester Public Library. Today I am joined by artist and sometimes author Bret Herholz. Bret Herholz is the illustrator and author of Diary of the Black Widow, The Spaghetti Strand Murder, Sherlock Holmes, The Painful Predicament of Alice Faulkner, and The Cask of Amontillado. He has done artwork for Paul Mars's book, The Ninnies, Brenda and Effie Forever, and Wild Thyme with Love. He supplied the cover and interior art for the series Loogie and the Booger Genie by N.E. Castle and was a contributing artist for 3 years to Cracked After Hours and artwork for BBC's Doctor Who DVD Extra. He is currently working on Alice and the Invaders from Wonderland with artist Paul Loudon, and Polly and Handgraves Investigates a Sinister Aura with artist Daniel Miller. Bret graduated from the Savannah College of Art and Design, earning a BFA in sequential arts. He currently resides in Massachusetts with his wife, 2 cats, and 4 rabbits. Thanks so much for joining me today, Bret.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So I have a few questions for you. First, I'm just curious how you got into illustrating graphic novels, and I was curious what comes first. Did you first have a story that you wrote and wanted to illustrate, or did you first draw something and wanted to put a story to it?
It's kind of worked both ways for me. It's one of those things where I've done work like with Diary of the Black Widow, where it's actually started off as a series of illustrations that kind of turned into a graphic novel. Actually, Diary of the Black Widow had kind of a longer story since I had done a series of illustrations. Then I sort of wrote it as a performance piece, which never got staged. And then I sort of developed and expanded the performance piece as a graphic novel or a comic book series, and that one sort of went that way. But there's a lot of other ones like with either Polly and Handgraves or Sherlock Holmes, where it did start out as a script, and then I developed it as a graphic novel. So there are certain projects where I have worked on them. They've either worked both ways. So
that's interesting. So I admit you're the first graphic novelist that I've interviewed, and I'm curious how you fit drawing and writing into your life. Do you work on both every day, or do you go back and forth between these two aspects of your creative work?
I kind of go back and forth between the two. I mean, a lot of the times if I'm working on something, if I'm writing something, I'll sort of do that first and just work on a script before that, and then I'll start working on illustrations. But then there's other days, like even with my comic strip art, where I'll just do that, where I'll just start working on the artwork first. But most of the time, when I am working on something like a graphic novel, I tend to try to map out my script first before I start getting into my pages. So that might take me a few days or a week or so, or however long it takes, depending, to develop that, and then I sort of go into working on pages.
That makes sense. So online I saw that in addition to being a writer and artist, you've also done set design for plays. Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I've done that a little bit. The first one I did was for a repertory company in Horse Cave, Kentucky. They were doing a staging of William Gillette's Sherlock Holmes and asked if they could use my style of illustration as the set design. So I had done set designs, which they sort of, I should say, I did illustrations that they took and sort of transferred them as set designs. And then later on, I'd say about maybe 2012, 2013, I did a small play / cabaret at Nick's in Worcester, was a Sherlock Holmes play, a short Sherlock Holmes play written by Conan Doyle, which I staged for one night. So I did like a small set design for that too. So those were like my two set design pieces I've done.
That's really cool. So I saw also that you were, as in your bio, a contributing artist for BBC's Doctor Who DVD Extra, which is super cool. What was it like doing something for a big production like that?
That was really interesting and really kind of out of the blue, because it was one of these things. I had gotten a email from the people at the BBC, and they'd asked if I could contribute. I think they first asked if I had some artwork I could contribute towards this DVD Extra, which was all about sort of the Doctor Who stories outside of the television series. Mm-hmm. Most notably, it was like a lot of the stuff for like the tie-in fiction, as well as Paul's series, which he did, which was actually the first one that brought back Doctor Who actor Tom Baker, called Nest Cottage. And so what I didn't really have much artwork lying around, so I did an original illustration that was that appeared on the DVD extra. So and supposedly I was promised to have a copy of it when it came out. I never got it.
Oh, that stinks. It sounds like a good project, though.
It was a lot of fun.
Sounds it. So it seems like your artistic skill has led you to work on a wide array of projects with a lot of different people. Could you tell us which one you consider to be the most interesting or surprising as far as the projects?
I think the one I had the most fun on was working on the Ninnies with Paul Mars. That one was a lot of fun because it was very much, it was a very imaginative and interesting story. If any of the listeners or people that go to the Worcester Public Library can get their hands on the book, it was very much in the, I think I might have said it, but it was in the tradition of like the Roald Dahl sort of books where it was just, like the plot was this boy who thinks his father's been taken away by these aliens called the Ninnies, and it was just a lot of fun, just like taking a lot of Paul's ideas and sort of trying to interpret them as illustrations. So that was a project I really enjoyed and had a lot of fun on.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to make sure we have a copy of that for our viewers. So this is something that makes me a little mad. As a librarian, I hear quite often parents saying to their children that graphic novels aren't real books. I think that they are. But as a graphic novelist, how would you respond to someone saying that?
Well, if you're looking for them to be something out of Marcel Proust, that's ridiculous. It's one of those things that, for somebody like me who had trouble reading as a kid, and it took me a long time to really get into reading just because I just had and still sometimes have a very short attention span. Graphic novels was like a great marrying of, words and pictures, and you can do a lot with a graphic novel. I mean, I've known a lot of graphic, classic literature that have been turned into graphic novels. Actually, a good friend of mine, Andy Fish, did a graphic novel based on Dracula. I mean, you could do Shakespeare and stuff like that in a graphic novel. So I mean, to say that it's not literature, well, maybe it's not literature, but if it's not a proper book, I think that's kind of silly. So.
Yeah, I've heard myself that it often helps people who are struggling with readers. And for me, someone who really enjoys just the art of illustration, putting those together, I think you can't go wrong.
And it's not just superhero stuff. Like I said, you can, there are a lot of, great Sherlock Holmes ones I've seen out there. I mean, there was an artist who's done like a series of them, like based on the classic books. So, I mean, all it takes is a little bit of detective work to actually find some good graphic novels that are, and I love the superhero ones, but, there are other ones. So, just to pigeonhole, it's just kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, that's a good point. Just a little bit of investigation. Probably anyone could uncover a graphic novel they'd like.
Exactly.
So speaking of graphic novels, what kinds do you like to read and enjoy? And is there one you've read recently that you really liked?
There are a couple I've read recently that I think are really, I just really started getting into, Jules Feiffer started to do a series of graphic novels. And I mean, he's an artist who's done just about everything in cartooning, but he hasn't actually, as of yet, till these books came out, have done a graphic novel, which I find very interesting. But I liked his books because it's a little bit slightly more realistic than the stuff he's done, like with the Phantom Tollbooth, but it's still that sort of very scratchy Jules Feiffer sort of style. And I really enjoyed reading them. And also a local guy, Travis Dandro, actually came out with a book called, I believe it's called The King of King's Court, which is a autobiography that he did in a very cartoony style. That's really a well-done book and a lot of fun to read. So I definitely recommend that one. Another one, actually, of course, I keep going back to Batman: The Dark Knight Returns, which was really the first graphic novel I ever read. But Will Eisner's The Dreamer is another great one, and one of his lesser-known ones, which actually kind of talks about his time creating comic books, especially in the 1940s. And it actually, even though it doesn't mention the characters by names, they do have versions of people like Jack Kirby who pop up in the book. And his his memories of Kirby in this particular graphic novel are actually a lot of fun because, you know, they kind of portray him as like a kind of a little spark plug who's not afraid to stand up to anyone.
Yeah, Will Eisner's definitely a classic.
Oh, yeah.
So if you enjoyed this talk with Bret Herholz as much as I have, make sure that you sign up for his author talk, which is on Saturday, October 17th at 11 a.m. He's going to be talking about being an artist and sometimes author and give you a bunch of tips on how to do your own graphic novels and collaborate with other artists. So you can do that right on our website. Thanks so much for watching today, and I hope that Bret and I will see you on Saturday. Thanks, Bret.
Oh, thank you.